I hear there's really exciting things happening in your corner of the world where there's a new cohort for PLA coming out. And like every cohort I look at, and I'm like, these people are amazing. And they're all coming together. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, PLA is starting cohort 12 here in early August. And once again, we turned away more applicants than we accepted. We are space constrained because we want to have this really intimate environment of people that are in similar jobs at similar organizations facing similar challenges. And I think I shared with you offline that we are trending towards a little bit more senior than the average PLA participant. So usually we're working with the head of the HR function at a company from 50 to 500 employees. And sometimes we'll work with a one down from the head of the function at a larger, later stage company. And so we have a lot of vice presidents in this group, a lot of slightly larger organizations, and some, rapid risers that are true sponges and, looking to learn from each other. And actually, I'm kind of paging through the bios. We have some of our friends from Canada that are joining us. Financial services, lots of tech, professional services. Here's an industrials business. Lord Doyle from Australia is joining us. So just great to see both the breadth of geography and experience level, but also that similarity in the participants in PLA that have kind of a similar mindset of, I want to be operating in a more strategic way as a more effective, more influential executive, and coming together to do that. It really attracts some impressive people to be part of that.
That's awesome. And I know every time you run a cohort, there's such thoughtfulness of what worked well last time, what do we keep? And what are the things that we want to experiment with, improve, switch out? What was the approach for this cohort in terms of that
Yeah.
keep versus change approach?
We have a pretty stable core that's based on the book that Brad Harris and I wrote a few years ago, Scaling for Success, which is about people management practices in growth companies. And so that was intended to be evergreen. That's kind of the skeleton of the format. But we have quite a few popular business management, like HBR articles, other books, and academic materials as well. So Brad is our curriculum advisor. He's the head of the MBA program at HEC Paris, one of the top business schools in Europe. And so we go through the readings and the assignments every cohort together. And we added some more recent academic articles into the supplemental readings. Those are dense, they're really thick, but it's also, I think, a baseline of credibility for us. One of the reasons that people join PLA is it's not just popular best practices, it's actually grounded in management research. So we very consciously try to make that balance of the academic and the practical.
There's such thoughtfulness too. I know I've looked through that supplemental material and also the reading that's more core. And there's such a variety of what's put in there. And I can just tell how thoughtful you're being in presenting balanced views in that to try to build up the intuition in these leaders so that they can take this grounded foundation and take it into their own day to day.
That's kind of you. And yes, that's my and our intention, isn't to push an ideology on the participants, maybe with one exception, and that is that our function exists to help our organizations meet its goals. And that shouldn't be spicy, but maybe a few years ago it may have been, as we were thinking of all the other stakeholders that we try to support and advocacy for employees and the broader social good. But like really the core of my approach has been like, we exist to help our organizations meet their goals. And maybe those are nonprofits that are doing direct good in the environment. Maybe they're tech startups that are trying to democratize something, or maybe they're air quote, like real businesses that are trying to make money. At the end of the day, like, how do we do that? And what things do we work on? I think that's useful work to dig into as an HR professional.
One fun thing about this cohort too, I noticed, and happens with most cohorts, is that there is a variety of structures and legal entities of the companies that are being represented here, which helps to push the conversation in those ways as you're testing, like, hey, does it change if it's nonprofit versus for profit? Does it change if it's VC versus PE? Does it change if it's a public company versus private? And I think that balanced view is really helpful as a professional to know, like, when is this like a tried and true type of HR fundamental rule or law, something of like HR nature, but when is it something that like, yeah, context really matters here and the environment really matters and we need to be thoughtful about that and apply it differently.
That's right. And those are topics that we can and should explore together. Core faculty and adjunct like yourself, you've been a subject matter expert, I think every cohort that we have operated on several subjects, by the way. Yeah, we want to explore these questions together, and the faculty doesn't pretend to have all the right answers. What we do have is a few more years doing this at probably more places than most of our participants have. And so we can add some wisdom and perspective. But I think that's part of what makes us special is that we want to come to conclusions together and you own your outcomes and the case study is your organization every week. The point of going through the program is to help you help your org.
One of the things I love, and I think mirrors the act of coaching, frankly, is the level of reflection that happens of like, what is going on? Why is it happening at my org in this way? What part of it is in my control versus not? And coming to the table with such vulnerability too, as a group and the questions that get considered. I mean, one of the things that you shared with me, and I know you're too humble to talk about it very much, but the success metrics of this group are really incredible. I know you took a recent survey, but what are some of the highlights that stood out to you around what was very meaningful about the success metrics you saw? And what are things that like might be helpful for people to look out for if they're thinking about should I invest in a program, whether PLA or otherwise, as indicators of is this going to be worthwhile of my time?
ROI is challenging to show direct contribution through a learning and development, executive development program. It's a long cycle thing. But we've been doing this like 6 years now. And so we have some long cycle data as well and 130 graduates. So it's awkward to ask people, have you been promoted? Are you making more money? How much of that do you think is due to People Leader Accelerator? But I asked it. I sent out a survey. We anonymized it. We had a lot of responses. Thank you to those of you that did respond. The top line of that was more than 80% of our alumni have been promoted after the program. Now, that ranges from people that graduated 5 years ago to graduated a few months ago. And the average pay increase is almost 30%. So that's tangible ROI. And then we asked on a scale of 0 to 100, how much of that was just natural career growth and how much of that was due to PLA. If I remember right, it was about 50% that was allocated to PLA in both of those areas, the promotion and the pay increase. Some people were very generous and gave us 100. But yeah, that was affirming to hear. And that's what we hope are those longer tail tangible outcomes where you grow as a leader and you build your network and you build your confidence and you feel that right away and you hear it from your executive leadership, like your CEO tells you that you're showing up differently. But then when you can see that in your job title and feel it in your paycheck, that's when you get the more tangible ROI. And so I appreciate our alumni responding to that. And I'm thrilled that we are seeing those results.
Really something to be proud of what you're building here.
Well, I'd still call it a we. Yes, I'm the face of PLA and I'm probably the primary driving force, but it truly takes a village and there are a bunch of people that believe in this and we are truly doing it together. So I like to say you get out of PLA what you put into it. That's true of just about anything, but especially a professional community that is intended to be deep and intimate and close. And so that requires faculty like you and Marie Such and Carmela Krantz and Brad Harris and our other adjunct faculty and subject matter experts and our 130 alumni that are engaging and helping each other. And, this is different than some group with thousands and thousands of people on a Slack channel that'll never meet and never really know each other and just ask each other what tech product they use. It's intended to be like real relationships over time. And we're seeing that.
It really is incredible. I mean, I get just a glimpse of it coming in as adjunct faculty for the topics that I teach that particular cohort. But when I do, there's always this entry point at the beginning where people are catching up and y'all know each other, even after a few weeks around what's happening in each other's lives. And that always gets called out. The atmosphere, like between the chat verbally as well as in the side chat and the Zoom, like there is such a wonderful energy that comes out, and it's so clear the level of community, the depth of community that's being built there.
Well, thank you. That's what we're aiming for. There is one practice that I will credit our friends at Modern People Leader, Daniel Huerta and Stephen Huerta. They have a standing practice at the beginning of each pod that we started doing at the beginning of each PLA live session. We're actually doing that for classes that I teach at University of Illinois now as well. We ask, what's good? What is going on in your personal and professional life that is good in this chaotic, challenging world where we're pulled in so many directions and sometimes it feels overwhelming? Here's our opportunity to share and connect with each other by sharing what's good. We do that at the beginning of every one of our 18 live meetings during the curriculum. That's one specific activity that draws people in and makes it more than a transaction.
I love that. It's so fun to get inspired by the great that is happening in other places and be able to sprinkle them throughout. Can
Yeah.
you hear a bit more about University of Illinois and what you're doing over there? Because you've mentioned it a couple times, but I don't actually know in depth, and I'm guessing our audience doesn't either.
Oh my goodness. Sure. Okay. So University of Illinois, I went there as an undergrad in industrial organizational psychology, intended to be pre-law, ended up graduating unexpectedly early in 3 years. And so I missed the deadline to take the LSAT, the law school admissions test, but I didn't miss the deadline to take the GRE, the grad school test. And a longer story about like family financial struggles, like that's part of why I decided to graduate early when I found out that I could. So I went to grad school on a full scholarship, full academic scholarship in the master's program at University of Illinois in human resources and industrial relations. And I had never even really heard of it. It was this little brick building next to the armory on campus, and I had taken a negotiation class in the summer and absolutely loved it. At the time in my hometown of East Peoria, Illinois, Caterpillar and the United Auto Workers were going through a 3-year strike. And so it was on the front page of the Peoria Journal-Star every day was the labor contract negotiations. And so negotiations were interesting. And I wanted to be where the action was. And so I wanted to be the negotiator. And so this HRIR program had a foot in both worlds of management and labor. And I thought that was really cool. And so I applied to the program, got a scholarship from them, started. And that was absolutely the start to my career. Like that program, I didn't know it at the time. It's arguably #1 program in the world for human resources. Maybe with Cornell, maybe Michigan State would argue about it, but just a fantastic graduate program in the field of HR. And we have minted so many chief HR officers out of University of Illinois. It's this like weird kind of mafia of Illinois, LER, Labor and Employment Relations. So I feel this like deep connection to that program. They had on-campus recruiting where the employers came to us. I had 12 job offers coming out of that grad program. That's crazy. So I give massive thanks and appreciation to University of Illinois grad program for doing that. I was on the board of their grad program for 10 or 12 years. I think I'm the longest serving person to be on the alumni board, and started a podcast with them and started a speaker series like decades ago before it was cool. And, of course, wrote some checks. And at some point they asked me to be the commencement speaker. So I got to wear the cap and gown. And I think I have a featured thing on my LinkedIn profile of my speech at commencement, which was like really a lifetime, not just career highlight. And so with all of that, I am now joint teaching a master's degree class at University of Illinois in the LER program that I graduated from. And it happens to be this summer. It's the third time I've taught it, and it's called Mastering Business Fundamentals. And I'm doing it with Brad, who I wrote the book with and who's part of PLA. So he joins in from Paris, and it's like 1 to 3 a.m. his time, and I'm here in California, and we're online and speaking with a dozen students, and I'm like getting misty talking about it because I feel such a strong connection and appreciation, and I want to give that back to the students that are going through it now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And there's such a through line too of just how much you want to give back to this profession and to the organizations that have given to you. I'm so glad that I asked.
Jess, reciprocity is happening here. So you have interviewed me publicly for the pod, and people will see my eyes like red rimmed and filling with tears as I talk about my grad program. How weird is that? But watch out, it's coming your way.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.